It's a new year on Why Wells Fail. How you doing, Lloyd?
I'm all the good, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. Looking forward to the episodes that we do this year. A lot of cool things have been coming from these conversations, and I think it's important conversations that the industry needs to know and think about, and realize that they have a lot more control than they may have not realized. So today's topic is predictability as the new differentiator. Predictability. That's a word in the vernacular of the refined culture.
It is.
What does it mean, Lloyd?
Well, it's part of keeping a promise. I mean, ultimately, our reputations are protected by the ability to have what's called as a real high, I say what I say and I do what I say, right? Say-do ratio. And to do that, you have to have something that provides the ability to predict the results you're going to get. And that's part of probably the most important part of the Pathfinder prediction process. And it's all based on sound science that's backed by a international process patent. I mean, and so predictability is the ability to say this is what's going to happen, this is what's not going to happen if you do these certain things, and this is going to be the result. And everybody's been able to predict or has become really good at saying, hey, this is really good geology. But when a well over its life doesn't provide the performance that was predicted or promised, whose fault is it? Why? And if you don't have the ability to measure, have the ability to have consistent measurements that are indicators of success or failure of activity happening, how do you go back when you make a prediction or a promise and it doesn't come true? And for so long as an industry, it's, we must not have done this, or the rock must not have done this. It's always there's a blame, or it's the chemical's fault. There's always been a path of applying blame to a failure instead of understanding the process of why it failed. And it's all about what our whole conversation we have every week really ties back to is we could really call it why wells succeed. But understanding what has not worked in the past is as important as why they succeed today. And that's the part about becoming predictable. And that's having a real scientific method and base in how you do everything and not relying on one test or one series of tests to bring about a prediction.
I was listening to somebody talk about the secret of being successful personally, and they talked about a lot of people set these goals and they work toward those goals. But this person was arguing that actually it's the process or the system that you put in place to achieve that goal is what's going to navigate you through all the unknowns that happen. And that's what the refined, predictable, the Pathfinder process is. I think about it as like downhole, it's dark, right? And we're taking shots in the dark is how the industry is felt, but now you're able to like actually kind of put some light on this situation.
No, we're absolutely have the ability to understand, these multiple mechanisms of the geology degrading to a point that it doesn't allow the hydrocarbon to be released into the wellbore. I mean, we're consistently learning additional parts of that. But right now there's 242 factors that we measure as part of our process, to be able to come up and say, hey, we predict this is going to be the result. And the other challenge that we're facing and we're realizing today is our industry has had a habit of taking a prediction and looking at it and judging the success or failure of a well in 9 months. And because our process, we're not in a hurry, and we want to allow the well to give up its resource in a controlled manner. Our process in 9 months, our wells are just now have caught up from the desire to get early oil, the desire to see the prediction, the predictable early oil that everybody says, oh, we got a great well, instead of having the patience of going, oh, we got a great well. And we're doing, a massive study in multiple fields. The early indicators are so encouraging because we've yet to find a place that our process has been applied that the wells within a 9-month time frame have not had equal performance to what non-refined process wells. But in 36 months, it's like 98% of the well sets that we've looked at, and we're talking thousands of wells now, that we've had this comparison, that we have not outperformed over a time frame greater than 12 months. And again, it goes back to under having a process of predicting what these mechanisms of failure are, inhibiting those, in what you and I talk about being a dynamic equilibrium, a chosen equilibrium, to where we're getting these hydrocarbons out of the wellbore. And but that's part of the prediction process. We also have to do a really good job of saying, guys, these are 20-year assets. And do you want an asset that gives you 80% of its return in the first 24 months? Or do you want it to give 80% of its return over 5 years? Because that's what you're seeing. And that's to the tune in most of our studies, utilizing $60 a barrel as our basis. We're seeing $3.5 million of additional revenue per well in oil-bearing regions like the Permian Basin, and in more natural gas located areas, it's still $2.5 million over that same time frame, like in the Eagle Ford, in a more dry gas window, because the production is just that much greater.
So you're saying that there's this 9-month, just everybody looks to this 9 months just out of habit, or that's just the way it's been?
It's just the way it's been, and it's been a really good indicator of historically, most wells, they've reached that maximum potential and they've started a significant dramatic decline curve within that time frame. And our wells don't have that peak to valley look. Ours are much more gradual in the incline, and they parallel that in the decline. So we have a much more parabolic shape production curve. And what that does is over the longer period of time, it yields more resource, more hydrocarbon. And it is now very predictable. And when you start getting statistic numbers, when you're looking into the thousands, the greater the N, the number of cases and statistics that you have, the greater the N, the greater the certainty. And which means the greater the ability to predict, the greater the ability to make a promise. And if and when this promise isn't kept, we are going to have the ability to go back and go, okay, this is where we missed it. Because this isn't something we're never going to make a mistake. That's why they have schools called arts and sciences, because part of it's art and part of it's founded science, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's what you know until you learn something different.
So in those cases that you do miss, what's the resolution?
Going back and looking at all the key indicators of what you expected, and finding out, hey, did we actually follow our process? Did we do everything we said we would do? And when I use the word we, it's not only refined, it's the operator, because we're partners. We're not in a vendor relationship. It's looking at, are there anomalies? Are there things that we couldn't see, that we didn't see? And it's that ability to go learn and not being defensive. When you're defensive, your ability to think, your ability to understand just goes away. And that's another great part of having a very scientific founded process to go through. It allows you to do the analytics and go, what did we miss? What performed in a manner that we didn't anticipate?
So when you have an operator that goes from we think this will work to we know why it will work, what does that look like?
I know what it's hard to describe what it looks like, but what it feels like, and what happens is confidence. The word try is a word that I've not liked for a long time. And try is utilized in our industry a lot because of the uncertainty of being able to keep your promise. Try is a way to, hey, we're trying to do this. Versus, no, this is what we do. This is our process. It's set and we run it, and we're not trying, we're doing. And we're people of keeping promise keepers. And, a lot of folks talk about having integrity, and it's something that, as somebody helps us develop our website, right? That's part of your company's role. There's nowhere on there that we talk about having integrity. That's something that is a reputation that you build and you gain over time. You can talk about it, but if you don't have ways to keep your promise to be predictable, how do you have integrity?
So these operators that adopt this process, they made a promise to their company. They're going to do their best, help the company win. And so you're helping them keep their promise to their family, to their.
No, absolutely. And it secures people's jobs. It secures their careers. It gives them the ability, it's just high trust. Stephen M. R. Covey, in his book, The Speed of Trust, he talks about that. And that's what the relationship looks like. It's much more collaborative. Rule number 5, we changed it from, and from a dynamic conversation or argument to where now it's discerning, right? Rule number 5 is having dynamic discernment in the fact that we have this collaborative, non-accusatory, but also very robust, passionate discussions. That's what the relationship looks like, because you both trust each other so much that you're going for the same goal. That's part of what it looks like.
So we're able to look at the data and then have discussions around that. It's not like they're just hoping and in the dark. They're there beside you, and you're showing them the data as it's going the direction of the process.
I like to think of ourselves as guides, and we're guiding because we've got a process in a way that we understand. It's, I'm not a rock climber because I'm not that physically gifted and strong to do that. A rock climbing, but when you see, I have gone rock climbing, I have rappelled, and you have a guide there, and they teach you and they show you, hey, this is how we're making you safe. Well, that's what our process is. We're making sure that it's safe, and if there is a failure, we have the ability to catch ourselves and then understand why, we're hanging off the rope instead of scaling the mountain.
Mm-hmm. This process has been a lifelong, I guess, journey or a creation for you guys. And to have a patent like this is a big deal. It's not just, hey, we got this great idea, but it's like this is built on a lot of backstory.
Absolutely. It's based on making a lot of mistakes. But one of the cool things is, in all this data, all this research that we're doing, we've hired an independent third party to go validate what we've seen ourselves. We've had about 80% of the equation figured out for a long time. And that's pretty reassuring, but it's real, in the scientific method and process, there's early easy gains, right? But to get from a place of good to excellent, that's where it really, really tough. And that's the journey that we're on.
The world at the moment in the oil and gas industry, there's a lot of conversation around what's happening. You've got Venezuela now a part of the conversation around this. And if I'm an operator, I guess maybe they know more than I do, but I'm thinking there's a lot of unknowns that are maybe being injected into the equation. What's your viewpoint on that?
Well, Venezuela has a very difficult crude source. It's a heavy crude, and it's not the easiest to produce. Now, it's enormous volumes. That country, because of the socialistic way that they've done things, their infrastructure is just absolutely destroyed. Now, Chevron's been in there, and they've got some processes that are good, but the industry has to be completely rebuilt. And there's a lot of lessons that'll have to be relearned to bring that resource back. And then that heavy crude is a dirty crude. It's there's a lot of work into it to create it into a consumable resource, into gasoline, into diesel. And so refineries have to have what's called catalytic cracking. This comes back from my old background when I worked in refineries. And there's a lot of value there, but there's also a lot of work that's got to go into it. So there's work on producing it, and then there's a lot of work that'll have to come about to refine it. And our world has, because of the shale revolution of fracking, we've learned how to produce a lot more hydrocarbon that's light, that's easily transitioned into products and materials. And so and one of the largest refineries that was built in the world down in the Houston area, it doesn't even exist anymore. That refinery's been shuttered. So the refining capacity for this heavy crude is not as robust as what it was, say, 20 years ago. So there's a lot of dynamic differences. Is it a great resource? Yes. Will it have to be grown into over time? Yes.
So the refined process, what I'm wondering, is what do the operators think at the moment? They're like, they're on the ball and they're predicting the future. They're like,
right now it's too new. It's too new, right? It's 3 days old. So, but what we are seeing is a very suppressed market. We need to make sure that the wells that we complete today have the lowest long-term operating costs possible, and that's another benefit of our process. The elimination and or dramatic reduction of the production of CO2 and H2S is critical, and that's what our process does. And creating secondary revenue streams through carbon credits and low carbon producer designation for these wells give additional opportunities to have income from following our process versus the old standard traditional way that doesn't have any of those abilities. And we will have our first commercial actions within the carbon credits within the next 90 days.
Wow. So what I'm hearing you say is the process will always be applicable and beneficial no matter what the situation is going on in the world.
Absolutely. Well, when I entered the industry, Steve, oil was trading for, call it $7 to $8 a barrel, and natural gas was 60 cents. And we had to squeeze every penny out of every well that we could in the late 80s and most of the 90s. And you did that by making sure that every well you had was the most high performing economical well that you could have. We're in today's environment, companies need to have that mindset again. This is how they're going to win over the long term. And that's part of our promise, part of our prediction is to be able to deliver wells that do that.
Awesome. All right, Lloyd, is there anything else you want to chat about?
I think just ultimately, you're going, what are the consequences of Venezuela? There's things that we're not in control of. And the refined process is helping provide control of the things you can.
Boom.
There's so many things outside, but yeah, boom. Let's do the right thing every time, and you'll control what you can control, and that's our job. That's what we see, what we're bringing to the industry that nobody else can.
Man, that was good. So if somebody's been listening, they want to talk to you, Lloyd, what's the best way to connect?
Lloyd.brown@refinecompletions.com, or we got @RefineCLloydB. I'm glad it keeps popping up on the screen. I'm sitting there waiting, anticipating. But those are the best ways. Reach out to us, come to our website, click on contact, and we will get with you guys. And we're just grateful. Want to wish everybody a happy new year. Pretty phenomenal new year. Even though my Red Raiders, I was in Miami and suffered through the absolute defensive gym that Oregon put on, and super proud of what Tech accomplished this year. But we're excited about what 2026 brings.
All right. As always, Lloyd, great job. We'll see you guys next week at the same time. And that's a wrap.